Hello everybody, welcome to Milla's Mad Masterclass. Today's YouTube video is brought to you from sunny South Africa. And today's topic will be learning. Now I have 3 assistants who will be helping me with today's topic. Let me introduce you to them. My first assistant is Bella Buns. Welcome Bella Buns, we're happy to have you on our masterclass today.
Hi, thank you.
Our second assistant is Daisy Buns. Woo, Daisy! Yes girl! Our third assistant is Princess Tam Tam. Princess Tam Tam, are you excited to be on the class today? Are you excited? Very excited. Okay, so now that you guys have met my assistants and that you know that today's topic is learning, let's dive into the theory of learning so that you can all be true masters of the theory and understand the example of Ivan Pavlov's experiment. Let's go. Okay, so let's look at the learning process and let's actually define what learning actually is. So learning is defined as a relatively permanent change in behavior caused by an experience. For instance, do you remember when you were little and you would jump on your bed and then one day you fell off and hurt yourself and you realized that in fact jumping on your bed is not the right thing to do? Well, that is a change in behavior caused by an experience. Furthermore, learning is an ongoing process. Knowledge is constantly being revised whilst we are exposed to new and different stimuli. We learn in different ways. We learn by observing events that affect other people, or we learn by accident, not even intentionally. For instance, have you ever been in the car and then a few hours later you start singing a song from a jingle you heard on the radio and you weren't even aware that you were listening to the radio? Yeah, don't worry, that happens to me all the time. Okay, so now that you know how to define learning and what learning is and how we learn in different ways, let's look at the theories of learning. So there are actually 2 different theories of learning and we'll go in depth later on into the 2. The first is behavioral learning theories. These theories focus on the stimulus response of learning, whilst the second, cognitive learning theories, focuses on consumers as problem solvers who learn when they observe relationships. Okay, so let's take a deeper look into what behavioral learning theories actually are. So behavioral learning theories are defined as theories that assume that learning takes place as a result of a response to an external event. The process usually follows that there's a stimulus that gets sent to the consumer, which is the brain, and then a response is elicited. The view is represented by 2 major approaches to learning. The first is classical conditioning. Now please pay attention to this one because I'll be using it for the example with the dogs later. Classical conditioning was done in Ivan Pavlov's experiment, the Russian psychologist. What he did was he thought that a stimulus that elicits a response is paired with another stimulus that initially does not elicit a response on its own. The second one is called instrumental conditioning, and people like to also refer to it as operant conditioning. This means that the individual learns to perform behaviors that produce a positive outcome and to avoid those that may yield negative outcomes, such as a punishment. Okay, so let's look at classical conditioning and the components of classical conditioning. So there's the unconditioned stimulus, the conditioned stimulus, and the conditioned response. So the unconditioned stimulus is naturally capable of causing a response. So if we use the example of an advertisement, this would be a reward or a gift for frequent consumers. The conditioned stimulus, it does not initially cause a response. So using the example of an advertisement, this would be the program itself, or like the program of the advertisement. The last one, which is a conditioned response, this one is a response generated by repeated paired exposures to the unconditioned stimulus and the conditioned stimulus. Eventually, through learned associations and repetition, the conditioned stimulus will cause the conditioned response. So if we look at the example of the advertisement again, this would be a membership, or if you would fly more frequently, you get a discount, so something like that. Okay, so along with components of conditioning, there are also factors that affect classical conditioning. And there are three factors. The first is repetition, and repetition is a conditioned stimulus paired with an unconditioned stimulus, and repeated exposures increase the strength of these two stimulus. The next is stimulus generalization. Now, this means it's a reaction to similar conditioned stimuli and conditioned stimulus with similar responses. The last one is stimulus discrimination. Now, this is similar to conditioned stimulus, but it's not followed by an unconditioned stimulus, and its an original reaction will be weakened and might even disappear. Okay, so the second and final approach to the behavioral learning theory is the instrumental conditioning. So this, if you recall earlier, as I mentioned, it occurs as the individual learns to perform behaviors that produce positive outcomes and to avoid those that yield negative outcomes. So it occurs when reinforcement is delivered following a response to a stimuli. However, it occurs in multiple different ways. So firstly, positive reinforcement means that you're rewarded by following a response. Negative reinforcement means that it's avoided by not performing a response because you do this or else something bad would happen. Punishment is occurring when a response is followed by an unpleasant event. And finally, extension occurs if reinforcement is no longer needed. Okay, I hope you're all still paying attention because we're on to our final theory before we do our Ivan Pavlov experiment. So this theory is the cognitive learning theory, and it stresses the importance of the internal mental process. So it views people as rather problem solvers that use information. So you'd call people more rational. In this theory, the question is asked, is learning conscious? And yes, they say it is. They say that people react to stimulus consciously. However, in the theory that we discussed before, which was the behavioral learning theory, they say that no, learning is not conscious. It's more of an automatic nature of conditioning. So you'd think that in this theory, it's more about observational learning. So learning occurs when people watch the actions of others and note the reinforcements that they receive from other people. And thus, they would imitate the behavior of others, which is called modeling. Okay, so there are different components of observational learning. The first is attention, which means the consumer focuses on a model's behavior. The second is retention, which means the consumer retains this behavior in their memory. The third is production processes, so the consumer has the ability to perform the behavior. The fourth is motivation, and this is a situation that arises whereby the behavior is useful to the consumer, so they want to do it more than once. And the last is observational learning. The consumer acquires and performs the behavior earlier demonstrated by the model. Okay, so I know it's a lot to take in, but please bear with me. That was all the theory we have today. However, I know it was a lot and it's very complicated. So I've made a summary on the next slide for you, and you can see how all the components link together, and I hope that will make a lot more sense. Okay, so hopefully by now you're all absolute experts on learning. However, in order to enforce this topic and make sure you remember the learning topic, we'd like to show you an example of Ivan Pavlov's experiment done on dogs. What we'll be doing is we'll be using our two assistants, Daisy and Princess Tam Tam, who you met earlier in the class. However, first, let's show you the components of the experiment and then we'll dive right in. In order to conduct Ivan Pavlov's experiment, we will need three different items. The first is an unconditioned stimulus, the second is a conditioned stimulus, and the last one is a conditioned response. Let's dive into what these exactly mean. The unconditioned stimulus that we'll be using are dog treats. These dog treats are used because they are a natural response. The next aspect is a conditioned stimulus. We'll be using a bell to elicit this response. Hopefully when the dogs hear the bell, they will start drooling. Our final aspect of Ivan Pavlov's experiment on dogs is the conditioned response. This response is generated by repeated paired exposures to the unconditioned stimulus and the conditioned stimulus. Eventually, through learned associations and repetitions, the conditioned stimulus will be causing the conditioned response. Let's start the experiment. Tommy. Sit. Good dog. Good dogs. Daisy. Sit. Good dog. Good dog. So what you just saw was the experiment in action. It's actually an incredible experiment because when it's repeated and repeated, it does actually show results. So what did I just show you? I showed you an example of classical conditioning where I rang a bell, I then gave the dogs a treat, and then repeated this until the dogs started drooling when they just heard the bell rang, not when they just received a treat. Just to remind you, our unconditioned stimulus was the treats, the bell was the conditioned stimulus, and the drooling was the conditioned response. What you can see in this example and the outcome is that classical conditioning is learning through an association. And here, the association was the bell. Ta-da! We are finished for today. I hope you all learned a lot about the topic of learning and that you can apply it in your future careers, because hopefully soon I'll be applying it in mine. I'm very grateful for all that I learned in the consumer behavior class in Chinese University of Hong Kong, and yeah, it was awesome to share it with you all and to perform the experiment with my dogs at home. I hope that experiment enforces all the knowledge in your mind and makes it easier to recall it. And yeah, I will see you all soon, hopefully somewhere around the world. Please like, comment and subscribe, and have an awesome day.